I have on the stage with me, you may recognize our wonderful James Bond.
Obioma Ugoala.
Obi, thank you, Obi. And Jordan Waller, the writer. And Derek Bond, yes, Derek Bond. Thank you all for staying. I could tell you enjoyed that as much as I did. We've only got about 25 minutes or so for this Q&A, and it goes really quickly. I will get the ball rolling, but then I will start looking for hands in the audience. Please don't just shout out your questions. I do ask if you can please wait for me to call on you. Just to get you used to raising your hands, and you guys can raise your hands with it as well. Anybody on social media in the audience? Anyone on social media? You can now turn your phones on, but please keep them on silent. You are able to photograph and take video clips of the Q&A. We are also recording the on-stage discussion to share on social media. If you're on Instagram, the show handle is A Role to Die For. This is Marylebone Theatre. I'm also on there. Derek's on there. Obi's on there. You're not on Instagram. Yeah, very sensible. And other social media exists. Very good. Okay. Any fans of a certain British spy franchise in the audience? Hands up. Hands up. You guys are fans? Okay. Anybody who's read the books? Okay. Anybody?
Really?
Anybody who's seen the films? Anybody who's seen all the films? Anybody who's seen all the films and read all the books? Oh, wow, that's impressive. Okay, and I'm wondering then, the final one, anybody who already knows they've got a question they want to ask? Okay, great. Okay, so I'm going to start with you, but I'm going to start with myself first, and I'm going to start with Jordan. Jordan, A Role to Die For. It seems so very, very of the moment, doesn't it, with things happening with relation to this British legend. But in fact, this was an idea that you had like 5 years ago. You started writing it.
Yeah,
Is that right? What was the catalyst for it?
Very broadly, I was having casting problems on 2 other projects that I was working on at the time. I'd written a film, and films are very difficult, but we managed to cast a very, very famous actor in the film. Like, we were thrilled. He was sort of knight of the realm, British royalty kind of stuff. And at the last minute, he pulled out. And I must.
I never.
But it sounds like somebody knows the story.
He didn't put. I must hasten to add, because obviously, the actor pulls out in the show for sexual impropriety, and this actor didn't pull out for that reason, or at least we don't know yet. But he sort of ruined everything, and I hate him. So I wrote this play. And at the same time, I had written a play about an 18th century French transgender spy called the Chevalier d'Eon. And it was with the producer, Simon Friend, who actually commissioned this piece. And we were having real difficulty casting it, because in 2020, it was that kind of heady time where there was a lot of talk about representation on screen and everywhere, really. And we were having these discussions about whether it should be played by a man, a woman, or whether a trans person should play it. And all of these conversations sort of coagulated around the Bond question. So one of us turned to the other and said, well, so we can get a fucking play made about the Chevalier d'Eon, shouldn't we try to make something perhaps about Bond, or the most famous spy franchise? I don't know what we're legally allowed to say here, but yeah, and that's sort of where it was born from. A lot of spite from me.
Yeah, I do have to say, Jordan has mentioned the legal. Obviously, this is inspired by James Bond. There are references, and I'm sure you will have questions, but we have to stress that none of the characters in the play are based on real people.
No, I think that's it's good. It's good that you say that. So let's be honest about it. I was obviously inspired by the real life, but I wanted to liberate myself from facts, because facts are boring. I could tell you all about the about the history because I did a lot of research into it. But that's not drama, and that's not going to be a good night out for all of you. So actually liberating myself from that and just using it as family setup, which is what I wanted, and what I was interested by the Bond franchise. That was the launching pad through which I could explore kind of everything that I wanted to about the icon and all that.
The play was first seen at the Barn Theatre in Cirencester
Yes.
in February this year. And Derek, you also directed there. So we have to ask about the name. Okay, so how have you been affected your whole life by having the name of Bond? And did it help you in this situation?
I think maybe it got me this job.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's when Simon Friend rang me and said I've got a script to send you, and I read it, and he said, "What do you think?" And I said, Is it just because of my name you've sent me the script?" But yeah, it was. Yeah, it definitely was. It was. Yeah, it's something that's always been around. I remember I was born in 1981, so there was always I was born into a world in which James Bond existed and had been around and was incredibly famous. My dad was born in 1947, and so it had a period of his life where it wasn't a thing. And then suddenly this character James Bond had sort of emerged, and then he'd had sort of all of his adult life. But I was at school and people were calling me James Bond, and I didn't really understand why when I was at primary school, and people were and then every time I've had to say my name to anybody, when you try and avoid saying your surname first, but if someone says, "What's the name?" and I go, "It's Derek." But I've always thought that Bond sounds like a spy, and Derek sounds like an accountant from Dudley or something. But it's sort of that kind of, maybe that's the kind of happy coincidence. But yeah, it is one of those things that's a famous name. There's a really funny video online, you can find it, of people whose name is actually James Bond, and they tell stories about being pulled over by the police and being asked for their name, and then giving the name as James Bond, and then getting arrested because they didn't. And then it can be very, very challenging in situations like that. So I'm glad my parents didn't decide to call me James.
That would be just awful. If you haven't got the program yet, do get a copy of those. They're great program notes from both Jordan and Derek, explaining more about both of the things we've just touched on. But the original run in February, what happened during that run? That was kind of an interesting period to stage it, wasn't it?
Well, it certainly was. We were sort of overtaken by events because Jordan had written this play about this situation in which somebody who is producing this spy franchise ends up at the end, and we said, imagine what would happen. And Jordan had written that she sold out to a tech billionaire. Imagine if that was a thing. And then about 2 weeks into the run, the thing we were terrified of was, what if they announced James Bond? What if they announced James Bond and it's not an actor who looks like the other actors who played James Bond thus far? And how would that sort of affect the show? And we were so worried about that, we never thought for a second that actually Jordan is actually Nostradamus, and is actually able to predict this.
Amazing. So, and Obi, did you appear in that run at the Barn? Okay, did you see it at the Barn?
I didn't. I was unfortunately busy at the time, but Kit was wonderful from Perth, from playing a part. He was a lovely actor. And Derek, when it was coming to London, said, "Hey, there's a thing. Are you around?" And I know Derek of old, and so basically when he says jump, I say how high. That was basically it. So that's how we ended up here.
And you have some experience of playing characters that you might not be expected to play.
Yeah. Well, we had some funny. So I originated both George Washington here and Christoph in Frozen, and with both of those performances,
George Washington wasn't in Frozen.
No, he wasn't. That's a fun show, isn't it? No, mashup. No, but I think with George Washington, there's this interesting color conscious choice that Lynn and Tommy Kail made with that.
Just to be clear, this is the musical Hamilton.
The musical Hamilton, yes. Sorry for those of you who don't know. And then, so that was interesting. And then there was a weird moment because I keep saying no more musicals. That's it. I trained at the Drama Centre, and it was lots of straight acting, Shakespeare, the classic text, the canon. And I said, no more musicals. And then Hamilton came along. I was like, well, no more Hamilton. And then Frozen came along, and there's this odd sort of mirroring of text of the show, where when I was growing up, they didn't cast people who looked like me in shows like Phantom or Chicago or Les Mis. So even though I sang quite a lot as a choir boy, I was sort of on the Lord of the Rings soundtrack and Harry Potter. There was a lot of that I didn't think was for me, that I didn't belong in that world. So I sort of left that to um, a sort of parallel universe where we were a bit kinder and a little less myopic. And so when the chance to audition for Frozen came along, playing Kristoff, this sort of Disney prince, I thought, huh, maybe me being on that stage, there will be a 5-year-old, 6-year-old boy who is having, or girl or whoever, who is having their first experience of theatre. And it's not just for, I mean, there is a part of it that's for sort of young brown boys and girls, but there's also a part of it, I think, very often when we talk around race, gender, sexuality, there's this weird thing that we do where we say, I'm going to teach these young marginalized groups how to navigate a world that marginalizes them, rather than teaching the people who might be part of the marginalizing group to say, hey, listen, you're growing up and people might tell you that it's okay to be mean to other people or to say that, oh, that you can't play that Disney prince, you can't play that character. And that happened to me in the playground. There would be people who'd say, you can't play that part. We'd go to it would be like a party, a fancy dress party, and go, okay, so you're going to be Prince Eric, and you're going to be Aladdin, and oh, you're going to be Simba. I'm like, what? Everyone else can be a Disney prince, I'm a lion. Like, that's how far we're reaching our imagination. So for me, there was a part of it that's like, yes, for the young brown kids who are coming to watch it, but also for young kids who are from all backgrounds who are watching going, oh, wait a second, that could be me, whether I'm sort of whatever heritage. So I think it's really important with our imagination, because I know there were some people who watched them like, well, that's not realistic. You've got an ice princess who turns the entire country frozen. That your beef is with the Afro Kristoff. Cool. So I think there's a real we have this wonderful potential to have an imagination where you've got cars that can go invisible and laser watches and whatever. So what is that to sort of invite an audience into a world of something as crazy as a brown bird?
As brown bird. And what in particular about Bond appealed to you for this production?
He again, the line is something that he's as British as I am. There was an interesting conversation that I think happened like maybe
you wrote that, not me.
So the script has changed since I was watching.
We've had lots of conversations and it's been really helpful. It's been really the script.
Yeah, I think there was a conversation that happened I think last year when what's his name was still around, Rishi Sunak was still around, and there was a lot of there was a lot of conversation around like he's British Prime Minister and he had gone to these schools, and there were some people who were just like, yeah, but he's a bit, and they didn't want to say it, but that was their point of contention. And I think that for me is, if you have this franchise, you have this character who is beloved by everyone, surely he should be able to, everyone should feel a sense of ownership over it. And I think what is great about being British, what is great about enjoying these films, is a sense of promise towards a future that hasn't happened yet. Is this futuristic sense of like, yeah, that could happen. And I think that is what it is to be British, is we are always saying we are built interstitially and connected to each other. And so what are we always hoping for in 10 years time, 20 years time, what is Britain going to look like? And I always think that we are made up of the communities and the bonds that we find each other in. So that is, I think, part of the institution of Bond is as rich as any of the other the institution of the famous spy franchise is as rich as any other sort of franchise, and I think we should all feel a sense of ownership over it.
Yeah, and it's wonderful actually the name Bond. It is a bond. It is something that bonds us all together. I think that says it well. Okay, sorry to leave you waiting, audience. You have the first question.
I enjoyed the play very much. In terms of the comedy, its style and its pitch, one of the things it reminded me of was Drop the Dead Donkey, that kind of media-based satire,
Yeah.
and quite bumptious satire. And one of the things about that show on television is that it always managed to keep up with that week's news, because they do last-minute additions to the script to make sure that it had that topicality. I was very interested to hear about the serendipity of the way in which you'd chosen to end the play and the subsequent events in real life around creative control of the franchise. I wanted to ask you about what I thought was a powerful iconoclastic moment, which is the moment where Deborah punches the portrait of Sean Connery. And I wonder if you comment on what you intended for that to signify.
Thank you. Well, also on the Drop the Dead Donkey front, we have somebody who knows that material also very well.
I think if my name didn't get me this job, then I think Drop the Dead Donkey did. I directed that, the stage show of that last year, which was a great experience. And similar to this, they're both workplace comedies, and there are sort of I think some similarities in Jordan's writing and Andy and Guy's writing from Drop the Dead Donkey as well. They're all incredibly witty. Also, I think Jordan writes a lot like people like Armando Iannucci and the team on the thick of it, that you can sort of detect. There's something, I think, very British about Jordan's writing, but also about the wit and the phrasing, the swearing especially. But yeah, about the
Stop it! You're gonna
So Jordan, serendipity and punching Sean Connery.
Serendipity. We were very lucky. And punching Sean Connery, I thought it just. I can't tell you that. It's a great question, and it's probably more intelligent than the response will be, and I will be. It just felt like she got to a point where everything was closing in on her. Everyone had let her down, and it was just an act of desperation. So I don't know. Look, the critics in 50 years' time will point out that Sean Connery is meant to be her dad, more or less. That's the person that she addresses in Exponesis, all of that kind of stuff. So it was a kind of attack on him, on men. It's a burst of frustration. Yeah, I wish I could say more, but I'm not very clever.
Okay, yes, question here in the middle.
Often it's again kind of pragmatic think about maybe having to feel set as possible. I was curious about why you thought set that middle scene in a separate space.
Ooh.
Yeah, so the idea that is also a brilliant question, and I think that there were a lot of constraints in this because basically in theatre hiring people is so extraordinarily expensive. So that's why the shows that we're seeing at the National, elsewhere, are all one-person shows, incredibly famous, because you just don't have to pay them that much, which is a sad thing because we should also be supporting bigger casts, and there are different stories you can tell with more casts. So it was very much a kind of, what can we do with this number of characters? I think in an ideal world, I'd have a whole office and I'd have a sort of moving car and all of that kind of stuff. But I couldn't, so it really had to focus in. It had to focus in the drama effectively and what kind of story you can tell just with 4 characters. The scene change, though, I think is kind of crucial because for me, it's all about. I mean, the whole thing is about this takeover, this Amazon takeover. I don't know if we can say Amazon, but for fuck's sake, it's Amazon. You know what I mean? So it's this tech takeover, and I wanted to plunge Deborah, who'd been so confident behind this desk in this plush green mahogany-clad kind of bachelor dick pad, and I wanted to put her in that horrible kind of pit of Sarlacc, where she is. Where there's just nothing but white walls and some weird kind of vaginal, thing on the side. It's always laden with meaning, I promise you. And that was meant to sort of tell the story that they're kind of flung into this world that they're not comfortable in. And you can see at the start of that scene, she doesn't know what she's sort of doing. She's like, I fucking hate this. We should be at home. This is all wrong. And I wanted to ask that question, like, what is
you know, obviously all this, you know, the world of tech is changing the way that we consume things and meaning and all of this stuff. And I wanted, I wanted to ask, well, what does that do to us, and what does that do to the way that we feel about things? So that's why that second scene I think was very important. Of course, a fucking nightmare, of course, the scene change.
Yeah,
Well,
it did.
But I thought it was very, I thought it was done very well. I thought Derek did very, very admirably in that. Very, very good.
Very
good.
And-
I have to give huge credit to Corey Schiff, our
Yeah.
designer,
Yeah, she
who's
was
done an
fantastic.
amazing job on that, and Adam Foley, our lighting designer, who also made it look gorgeous. The I think what's really, for me, what's really interesting about it, and Corey and I talked about this a lot, was about, them making them uncomfortable. Fishes out of the water, that they're suddenly thrown into a very different environment. And this is an environment that's all about the past and heritage, and you know, the smell of rich mahogany, and these portraits sort of staring down on you. It's all history, history, history. This is a desk which her father almost certainly sat behind.
Conceived her on, probably.
There's some little secrets about it which I really wanted to share with you, because I'm not sure, like, they read for us and we sort of sit on stage thinking we're very clever. But there's a cigar here in an ashtray which we imagine is the cigar that her father was smoking just when he died, and he just put it out and then she's left it there forever. And then she only picks it up just at the very end when she's sort of trying to conjure him and trying to think of his spirits and sort of the smell of his cigar smoke. What would Daddy do? That's the phone that he always used to use, that some assistant has taken the guts out of and has now made digital, but so that it works practically. But she insists on keeping everything exactly as her father used. Then, when we flip the stage around and we go to the modern studios, everything has got its equal and opposite. And I don't know if anybody notices this, but we've got a green chaise over here, and we have a lime green sort of chartreuse chair. Was sort of from the 1970s over there.
Does that mean that Daniel Craig's the vagina?
Daniel Craig, maybe the. But what we've got is pictures of a lot of very masculine people holding guns, and what we have in the second scene is a picture of a vulva. What we've got over here is a little secret cabinet that contains lots of booze. What we had over here was a bright orange fridge containing very expensive mineral water. So sort of everything has got its sort of equal and opposite. And this room is filled with things that feel a lot more analog, and the other space is filled with things that are very digital.
And how interesting also that the female character feels more comfortable in the masculine space. But also a great thing about the step change is conveniently we have a ready-made screen so that we can see Obi do his screen test.
Yeah, and that was sort of like, that was one of the briefs of it when we sort of first, when I first read the script. It was the opportunity of showing bits of film and these auditions, the screen tests, and there was a great opportunity to add more of that into it, the technology, to make it feel a bit more like Tomorrow Never Dies, that sort of the bit which feels very kind of digital and kind of like and with numbers and apps and things like that showing in it as well. So irresistible.
Now, I wanted to say, I think we've got a group of students from New York University here tonight. Producing.
You came all the way here just for this, from New York City. Wow.
So well done. Thank you guys for staying. Let's hear a New Yorker question. Who's got the question? Who's got the best question? Yeah.
Who's your nominee?
Okay, you've nominated yourself. Great. Okay.
Oh, wait. Oh, my gosh.
That's okay.
I just wanted it, I'll keep it quick, but I programmed off my class for theater productions, and so of course you get to do this like with the projection in that scene in the middle, but I was wondering how operating this entire play based off of 24 hours changes the way that this entire production like point A of the story to point B, I guess, like changes when you think about it, or write about it in that way.
So the time frame of the action.
That's a really great question, and I think I started wanting to write this as a comedy. It very quickly became a tragedy, a bit like my career, really. And in doing that, I wanted to constrict myself. We could only have 4 characters. I thought actually if you make a kind of classical tragedy and you set it within the unities, what can you do? And I wanted to find that analog of like tradition versus modernity. So you've got this kind of classical tragic structure, And in it, you've got the kind of modern sense of, well, what would happen if we cast, Greg Wallace as Bond and all that. I think
The New Yorkers are not going to get that.
Don't worry, you ain't getting it. He's like, it is all about like, well, what can you create? What can you create? How do you create tension? How do you create, that ticking clock? Ticking clock is what, drama should all be about, which is why Derek, puts it in at the end of the scene. And it's all about, you get the crowds at the end that you start to hear, you want to feel the characters under some sort of pressure, because that's the thing that, that puts the sphincter on edge, and you're all excited to see how it's going to end. So that is a really, really good question. You're bang on the money.
Thank you. Okay, I think we've got time for maybe 2 more quick audience questions. So we're going to hear them both at once, and then we'll try to cover them both. Yes.
I would like to know what beef is George Lazenby.
Yeah. Why don't you like George Lazenby? Wait.
There was a big campaign for Justice for George. And,
Hold on.
No.
yeah.
Oh, he's tiny. You can see it. Oh, right. Okay. I didn't even see that. My eyesight's so bad. Yes, you're good.
A bit more about your process. So you told that during the writing and like staging, there were lots of conversations. How much was screen complete and how much was interacting? And also what the future, because the run is short, but I would like to remind it to everyone.
Oh, that's so kind. That's
why we invited everyone from New York.
Yeah. Take it to you. Yeah. So your original writing process and how it changed.
So it's difficult to say the writing process. You can probably hear there's a sort of rhythm to it. So I speak the whole thing out loud. Actually, I do a very good Deborah. But I was asked to hear it. But so I speak it to myself, usually in my pants in my bedroom. My poor boyfriend said to her an awful lot of it. I actually started weirdly. I started with that first speech, and it was I'd written another film, and a producer was trying to get me to put in a scene that I really didn't want to put in. And over the phone, he was just like, "Why don't you just write it? Just write it in. Go on, write it. I'll wait." And that's where that kind of came from. And from there, from there, I just made it up.
I think it's worth saying also that Jordan is also an actor as well as a screenwriter and playwright.
Another fun Easter egg for you: when the amazing sound team who put the rings on everybody's phones and things like that. It's a brilliant system, so that when the phone rings, a picture actually comes up like it does on the phone. And when she's speaking to Joe, the writer, it's Jordan's face. It's on. Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know if you did.
Another question I had, Obi, for you as an actor. I mean, there is a lot of talk, leaving aside the spy franchise, about the nature and the direction that casting is going generally, like algorithmic and AI. And does this worry you as an actor?
I am worried because I don't think we're being conscious enough of who's training the AI and what they're being trained on. And also, is anyone Spotify? Anyone use Spotify? You get locked into your playlist, like you just listen to the same music, and we will be in a cultural sort of enema moment where we're just stuck here. And the people who now with Apple TV and Netflix and Amazon, we are because we're not training new actors, because we're not investing in new actors. There's no one who's sort of like breaking through. There's like maybe Zendaya or like Queen Pascal, but for the most part, it's like, oh my God, Jennifer Aniston is doing a TV show on Apple TV, so you watch that. Matt Damon's doing a thing on Apple TV. You've got what's his name, who was the Oscar winner, Eddie Redmayne, was doing Day of the Jackal, and it's like lovely. He got 10 million for that TV show, and you think that's great, but you're an Oscar winner who is now on Sky One, and like that's crazy to me because previously that would have been something that like someone else was like had that would have been a lovely stepping stone up. The danger is those people who have been celebrities, who are sort of legacy celebrity A-listers, have traditionally been white, looking a certain way, and so the people who you then go, oh, well, that's who is going to be able to lead this next TV show and that next film franchise, and on and on and on. So people who are marginalised have always been on the outskirts of that. And so if we are letting the algorithm teach us and just like carry us away, it's just going to keep doing what we're doing. And especially as, you know, sorry Americans, but with the tariffs, things are going to get more expensive. Like cost of living is going up. And so we're going to be in this, no, but we're going to be in this odd place where we're going, things are going to get more expensive, we'll get more conservative in our taste, and we'll have safer offers where we'll say there's one person doing a one-man play at the National. That, for me, feels like the death of art, the death of something interesting, and like us being in like interesting cultural conversations with each other. So I think we need to constantly be resisting that and pushing ourselves and pushing our boundaries. And,
well, I'm relying on art to get us through this darkness. We're going through a dark period.
Which is why it's so important that we support, you know, theatre shows like this. And I just before you wrap up, I just want to say I'm so grateful that you all came, and if you enjoyed it, please tell everyone about it.
Yeah, I
I
love that.
I just wanted to say.
Don't clap that.
Don't clap it. I just want to say thank you.
Because I
so
have a couple very quick
Oh, you
questions.
do, sorry.
Question for all of the audience. Who likes the idea, building on what Obi just said, who actually likes the idea of a 00 universe that is described in this? Oh, a couple.
Bloody Americans. What do you like about it?
I don't know, it's more variety. I kind of feel like, you know, I'd be bored if I just saw like the same Bond over and over.
But isn't boredom sometimes good? No, seriously, it's important. This is really important. Isn't it sometimes good not to have every single whim satisfied by some bald man on a yacht? Isn't it good?
No, but the one thing I will say to that, I think, if anyone watch, like, again, on Netflix, when something is dumped, we just watch the whole thing in one big go.
Yeah.
And I guess I wonder, we don't have event TV anymore. There used to be a time when people watched a show called Game of Thrones before it got bad. And you would watch an episode a week, and then you talk about it for the
Well,
week.
we got Line of Duty doing a new season.
Great, but I think that would be my sort of provocation. Would be like, what is it if we're, you know, if we get everything we want, maybe we'll just get that, and like in that film Wall-E.
Okay, and
Yeah,
final one for each of you. Brief, you two, brief. Either you can answer one or both. Your favorite Bond and who you think should be cast as the next one, and/or.
Oh my gosh.
Obi, favorite or cast as? Obviously, we cast you. But.
Yeah, no. I was saying Johnny Bailey. I think Johnny Bailey would be like, he's a bit short. He doesn't fit that algorithm, but he's got Riz, and I think that's important. Yes.
He's gay.
Yes!
We love the gays.
Screwed by the gays.
Screwed by the gays.
Who's your boss? I'm going to yeah. I don't know. I think you, Obi. You are my James.
In your
Like
way.
us. And as Obi said, I worked with him like a long time ago. And like, when I was reading this, I was like, I need an incredibly handsome man of colour who could conceivably be James Bond. I was like, there's only one man for this job. I called Obi straight away. Yeah. So I think Obi should be James Bond.
Okay, and so finally, Jordan, do you have a favorite or a prediction? You've done very well on the predictions today.
No, I do have a prediction. I'm not at liberty to disclose.
Okay. I will just finally say I am at liberty to disclose that you are all now champions of the show. The show is on here at the Marylebone Theatre until the 30th of August. So we want every night to be as fantastic as you were tonight. Please grab
Tremendous audience.
Yeah, so grab
Absolutely fantastic.
brochures, do everything on social media, stop people in the street, come again, tell everyone you know. And thank you, and join me please in thanking Obi and Jordan.
Thank you so much.